The following production is intended for entertainment purposes only. We are not legal professionals. We do not speak for any government agency, and the opinions expressed here are our own. Relax.
I don't know, where were we at?
We were talking about how it's easier for
Yeah,
kids of this generation because the social costs are much lower to be accepting now than it was back
right.
then.
Right. Yeah, and I think we're still finding the balancing act.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I think we are progressing, but I definitely don't think anyone or, any of the big political or ideological sides have everything figured out.
mm-mm.
There's, you know, kind of like I think we get to at the foundation of all of this, whether it's religion or your worldview or like just it's going to come down to like personal accountability and personal ownership. Like coming out of that, I say coming out of the passenger seat and going into the driver's seat. Like you have to evaluate things on your own. Like just be if there is going to be progress, and I think our generation time frame was maybe the first. I don't know where I'm going with that because they're still progressing, but we were one of the first ones to really hit that wave of being able to question things.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of lost where I was going so much with that. But so growing up, what'd you do after high school?
Um, so after high school, I did I want to say about a year at a community college, Butler County, actually a couple community colleges. Um, and then went off to Emporia State for a semester. Lived in an apartment with two dudes, and then started dating my wife or my girlfriend at the time, and soon to be fiance. So got tired of driving back and forth from Emporia every weekend. Came back to Wichita and got married, and then kind of put school on hold for a while because I had a wife now and needed some money. And then sort of balanced school and work off and on over the next few years until I got my degree.
Was mom and dad trying to push you in any direction as after school or in general?
Not really. I mean, I think I had talked about I had an interest in going into law enforcement. I didn't really take specific courses in that direction, but I was just kind of working on getting a bachelor's degree. And then I didn't really know exactly where I was going to go. I just had sort of, unofficial plans that I would, try to be a cop. And as I said before, my wife disabused me of that notion, and I wasn't too mad about it. But I didn't know what else I was going to do.
Looking back,
What?
like with your evolved worldview now, looking back, uh, do you think that do you think that you would have wanted to be a cop now? Like if you were graduating, coming out of there, were you trying? What was your plan for wanting to be a cop? Like why?
I ask myself that question all the time, honestly. It's almost like do you remember that movie Sliding Doors? It came out a long time ago, and it was basically it was the idea that your life can take a turn, and if you make this decision, then your life goes in this direction.
Yeah,
If you make that decision, your life goes in an entirely different direction. And so I have often wondered if I would have ended up on the same trajectory if I had ended up going into law enforcement. And I don't have an answer for it
yeah,
necessarily. I think the reason I wanted to was just because it was kind of all I knew. Justin and I come
yeah.
from a big law enforcement family, right? Dad was a cop. Uncle and aunt were both police officers, and Justin ended up going into it. Our sister ended up going into law enforcement. So, um, and I did have a deep interest in. I've always had been very justice minded.
Yeah.
So I've
Mm,
always had a very deep sense of wanting to right the wrongs and wanting to help people who, either were taking advantage of people on the margins or the people who themselves were on the margins. Like I've always had a heart for um, trying to do right by those people, and I felt like law enforcement might be a way to do that. And also, I just loved, I loved cop movies. I loved detective stories, and I
Hell yeah.
always just thought it sounded like a badass job. Um, and I and it is right because I some of the cops I know are some of the coolest, badassiest people I've ever met in my life. Um, but I do wonder if I would have been soft in the ways that I am towards certain issues if I was confronted with the realities that police officers are often confronted with. Because I do think it's sort of easy to be a liberal when you're not staring down the barrel
Sure.
of life on the streets, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know that one view is more valid than the other, but I think that probably it would have been a more difficult journey, I guess, if I hadn't taken the path that I took.
It's also easy to be a conservative when everyone you know looks like you, thinks like you, talks like you.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah.
Um, man, I
Now,
tell you what.
real quick, before, so what year was that, Travis? And what was your relationship with like mom and dad and the world? Like, were you like involved in the youth group at the time? Like,
Yeah, I mean, I was always involved in youth group. When you say my relationship with mom and dad relative to what? To wanting to be a
like,
police officer?
no, just in general, like you got along with them well, good relationship.
Um, yeah, I think so. I mean, I remember by the time I got a job in a car, I was kind of I was kind of doing my own thing most of the time. I still obviously, mom and dad had some limits that they put on us, and I generally observed those limits. I won't say that I never went outside the lines, um, but yeah, we generally had a good relationship. I don't remember fighting with them an awful lot. I don't remember them really giving me a hard time about too much. Um, so yeah, I would say it was, I don't have a ton of negative memories from that time in my life.
And what year was it?
Well, I graduated in '93, um, so I went off to uh, I went to Emporia State in '95, spent a semester up there, and then came back in '96 and got married.
Just as a frame of reference, 93 is, I believe, the year that Use Your Illusion Volume 1 came out. Volume
Sounds
4, I
about
believe, came out in 94. So
sounds
if
about
somebody
right.
needs a frame of reference for what years we're talking about, that's
Yeah.
it.
The all I remember is that the blue record was better than the red record
Yeah.
because the
Yeah.
blue record had the original lyrics to, or no, maybe I'm getting this wrong. The blue record had Civil War on it,
Yep.
um, and I think it had the original lyrics to Don't Cry,
Yep.
and the alternate lyrics were on the red album. So the blue one was superior in terms of Guns N' Roses
The
products.
Red Album had one song on it that was really good, but I don't remember what it was.
Yeah.
Um, anyway, you were getting ready to say something, Clayton?
Oh no, I was hanging on the edge of my seat during your guys'.
It was Guns N' Roses lore. I didn't know we were gonna go there.
No, I wonder, like, uh, so you haven't. It sounds like you haven't thrown the baby out with the bathwater. Like you haven't gone too far. You're just. What I want to know is like, since now you don't identify as that conservative, at least not socially or politically
Yeah.
anymore. Have you like forced yourself? Have you changed your view on guns, or like obviously your views on same-sex marriages or same-sex
Sure.
relationships has changed, but like
Yeah.
guns or voting or immigration, has everything changed? Or
Um, probably, it's probably to some degree, yes. I don't know that there's, and again, apologies to any of my conservative friends out there. I don't know that there's a lot that we have common ground on these days. In terms of the issues that you brought up, like as far as guns go, I I believe that people should be allowed to have guns, but I think they should be much more difficult to get than they are.
Sure.
I would love to see. I would love to see the type of response that the NYPD gave to that murdered CEO every time there's a school shooting.
Yep.
So, I don't think I'm as far left as one can be on the topic of guns, but I'm certainly much further left than a lot of my Republican friends.
I'd say that sounds pretty reasonable.
Yeah, it seems like a reasonable position that children should not be murdered in school, but
Well, even with guns, I've had the idea. I know a lot of people do. I almost think of it like a car. Like, yes, you can own a car, but to
Sure.
bring your car in public, you have to pass a test, homie. And
Yep.
we have to know that you're not doing this when you're drunk, that you got
Right.
enough sleep,
Yep.
that you're
We
not
need to
taking
know who owns
prescriptions.
that car.
Yep,
Like,
exactly.
Yeah.
And maybe even pay a registration tax on. Well,
Yeah.
no, that's too far. That's a bridge too. That's a bridge.
Now, there's also an expectation that you've trained and occasionally retrained
Yep.
or been retested on that.
Certification. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, you need
Just
to
like a
show
car.
that you need to show that you're not going to accidentally kill 3 people in the grocery store when you're trying to shoot the bad guy.
Or
Yeah.
man, I've when I was a hardcore conservative or just maybe a harder core libertarian, that's kind of what I identify as now as a
Yeah.
libertarian.
Yeah.
But even then, not totally.
Yeah.
I would think there's no such thing as a non-permissive zone. Like if it's in the United States of America, it's a permissive zone.
Yeah.
But now I find myself in a non-permissive zone and I follow the rules. So I don't carry in these non-permissive zones.
Yeah.
But I've found like one time I thought I was going to get carjacked and I was in the parking lot of this non-permissive zone. So I didn't have my gun on me. And
Yeah.
this van screeched up and stopped in front of me. And it was like 10 o'clock at night, pitch black parking lot. I'm a former cop, so I think of the worst thing possible. Like, oh, I'm about to get carjacked, and I don't have my gun. Turns out it was this little old lady that was cussing me because I caught her stealing earlier. And I was thinking, thank God I didn't have my gun because I would have drawn it and put it in her face.
Yeah.
If someone screeched out in front of me, and I promise I could have articulated, they had opportunity, ability, and intent. At least in my view, my life was threatened.
Yeah.
In the real world, it wasn't.
Right.
You know what I mean? It at least it ended up not being that way. But man, it could have.
Yeah.
So like just in that situation, there needs to be something. There needs to be some systematic halt. Like even going back to the most ancient times, there were all this democracy. I'm thinking of like ancient Greece, where like a lot of the Stoic bros like to claim their heritage from.
Mm-hmm.
Even back then, you had to lock up your arms when you came into the city.
Sure.
That's what part of
Yeah.
Socrates' argument was based on.
Watch
But
any
what would you-
watch any Western, and that's the
Hang up
first
the
thing
guns.
that's the first thing they did when they walked into town was hand over their guns.
Yeah.
But so what would you say then to somebody that says shall not be infringed?
I mean, it's a tough argument to overcome because we can't get into the heads of the guys who wrote it almost 300 years ago.
But you agree that they weren't talking about hunting.
What? Who? Me?
No, the founding fathers. Like I guess I'm T-Pack. The founding, like we don't have to know what they were thinking to know that they weren't talking about hunting.
Right. I don't think they were. I think, and I'm not a constitutional scholar, but I did watch
Yeah.
Hamilton.
Okay.
And I think that they were trying to prevent a tyrannical government from being able to stop the public from defending themselves. I think where that breaks down now is I don't think they had any concept of the type of firepower that we as humans were going to create.
Right.
And I don't think that for me the argument that the founding fathers proclaimed that I should be able to carry any gun that I want because I need to be able to protect myself from the government sort of falls apart when you remember that predator drones exist. And
Right.
your AR-15 is not, if the government wants to get you, they're gonna get you.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right. But also Afghanistan proved that, and Vietnam proved that ill-equipped but well-motivated enemies
Sure.
can still take down the biggest war machine in the world, or at least
Absolutely.
halt us.
Yeah.
But something that is important to think that I didn't consider until these foundations first started getting shattered with me, and I talked about this on here with you before, Justin, is that the founding fathers said shall not be infringed, but they were also talking to an audience that didn't have a police force.
Yeah.
They had to contend with hostile indigenous people here that we were actively murdering and stealing their land, and they had a bone to pick about it.
Apparently they had a problem with that.
They had to deal, the normal citizens had to deal with bandits on the road. Like
Sure.
that was a real thing. You had to deal with there was no newspaper internet. You might just be going to town and there's redcoats marching all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Like that's what they wanted their people to be prepared for.
Yeah.
That's not the world we're living in.
Right.
And I believe in shall not be infringed in an intelligent way.
Yeah.
But like you can't compete with predator drones, but like I said, you can anyway. But we're not dealing with hostile Native Americans. We're not dealing with road bandits. I believe you have an obligation to protect your family,
Sure.
whatever that means to you.
Yeah.
Maybe it means don't put your family in dangerous places where you have to be violent. Pretty good way of protecting your family.
Yeah.
But so that's an argument for carrying guns. Like I got to be able to protect my family.
Yeah.
But like again, the threat is, even as crazy as the world is with, these Venezuelan gangs taking over apartments in Aurora, or, a hurricane comes in and gangs rule the streets for a period of time afterwards. Yeah. As bad as it gets, it's still the safest. Like if you were to play the odds, it's still the safest time it's ever been.
Absolutely.
The most prosperous time it's ever been.
Yeah, I absolutely believe there is not a single day in human history that would be better to have been alive on than basically every day from here on out, right?
In a lot of ways.
In a lot of ways, right? Certainly things could get bad. A lot of things are getting bad, but just in terms
people
of
in Palestine don't think that right now.
Well, that's yeah. I mean, that's true. I think if you zoom out though, in terms of the course of human history, right? We're not dying from, scraping our knee and getting an infection anymore.
Right.
We're not dying of polio, unless Robert F. Kennedy succeeds in getting rid of the polio vaccine. But
okay, pump the brakes. No.
You know what I mean? Just there's a lot of bad things, but there's a lot of things that have never been better.
Yeah, and I think we want to think that we're a lot more different, or maybe there's people that want us to think that we're a lot more different. But I would say that's even a pretty conservative view on gun policy, or a mainstream conservative view on gun policy.
Yeah, it doesn't feel particularly, leftist to me to just believe that people should be able to own guns responsibly. I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah.
I'm on the fence about whether, an AR-15 is appropriate. I feel like I'm not a big gun guy. I grew up around guns, right? Because my dad had a lot of guns. but it concerns me greatly that every single time there's a mass shooting, it's an AR-15 that did that mass shooting. Maybe
Yeah.
99%
Well, the
of
last
the
one
time.
was a pistol.
99% of the time. When
I'd
it's
be
a
interested
large
in
number
those
of people,
statistics.
right? When you're killing more than 12, 12 people at a clip,
Yeah.
it feels to me like I can pretty much say, I bet that was an AR-15. And most of the time it was, because they're so easy to get and they're
Yeah.
relatively cheap. You can go buy one at Dick's Sporting Goods, or at least you could at a point in time.
Not dicks anymore. They're liberal.
Yeah, they got rid of them, I guess.
They're
but
libtards.
Sports Authority, maybe.
Yeah, real quick, come say hi. And T-Poc's with him. Say hi, Justin and T-Poc.
Hey, dude.
Put your mouth right here.
What?
Hi, Justin and T-Pop.
What's your
What
name,
up,
buddy?
Cash?
Cash, that's a great name.
You got to put your mouth close.
Yeah.
Do they call you Cash Money?
All right, tell him you got to go. Say bye.
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 You're laughing.
Good.
Hi.
Hello. What's your
Yeah.
name?
Don't sit down. You're not staying. Don't sit down.
Taking over as host.
Listen, are they saying anything?
Did you have a good weekend?
Yeah.
Did you have a concert?
No.
No concerts? Did you go to church?
No.
You didn't go to church today?
We were
Ooh.
busy.
Oh, you were too busy for the Lord? Ask your dad. Ask
the
your dad
cathed-
if you were too busy for the Lord.
Cathedrals had a song about that, Justin. Excuses, excuses. I hear them every day.
For the what?
Lord.
No, we're never too busy for the Lord.
That's
All of our work is for the Lord.
right.
We're too busy for church.
That's true. We can be too busy for that. I'm all right with that. All right. Good night, guys. Love you. Take your melatonin. Huh? Tomorrow, I bet. Buenos noches. Love you. Okay, good night. Okay, we'll talk about it. Think about it, and we'll talk about it. Write down your ideas. Jesus. Allie, stop. How to use my stern voice there at the end. Aliana. Cash always wants to know if he can say hi to Justin Bobby Big Tits, but he never calls you when he has the chance. He never says Justin Bobby Big Tits.
Remind me the history of that. I remember I pictured front of the squad room. I was sitting in the middle chair. You were, I want to say, the front row. That, but I don't remember anything else about that.
Oh no, it was nothing. It's nothing too dramatic. I sent you a meme that said, "I'm going to change my best friend's name or middle name to Bobby Big Tits," and so it was like Rebecca Bobby Big Tits Johnson, and I was like, "Hey, you're Justin Bobby Big Tits Crafton," and you were like, "You better keep it that way," or something like that.
Oh, is that all it was?
Yeah, that's all it was.
Oh, okay.
And so I changed your name in my phone to Justin Bobby Big Tits. Now every time you call or text, and my kids are playing Roblox, they're like, Justin Bobby Big Tits texted you. I'll text him back later.
Was I particularly fat at the time?
No.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, it had nothing to do with your physical appearance. I would never body shame you.
It was just a meme.
It was
The
more of
best-
a personality, a vibe. It was a vibe.
The best nicknames have no basis in reality, no objective reality.
That's good to know.
I've had a couple nicknames, and they were always based on either stories or good times.
Yeah.
My call sign was Whiskey Black when I was in the Navy, and there's my call sign when I was at Riverine Squadron 2. Call sign is like what pilots have. Like
I was gonna say, were you a
laser.
pilot? Were you a top gun?
No, I drove a boat, but we did have call signs because it's easier to keep it like down to 2 syllables, and you didn't want to use each other's names over the line.
Yeah.
But mine was Whiskey Black, and it's based off of, if I was explaining it to a chief or to someone important, I would say, because my name is
Did you
Black.
have to? Did you have to
Sometimes.
give an explanation? Okay.
Uh, but even then, I ended up telling him the real story anyway. But like Blackwood BW Bravo whiskey, it's easier. I think it's better to say whiskey Bravo instead of Bravo whiskey.
Yeah.
But it comes from me going to Camp Lejeune during training missions and getting drunk and passing out in the back of our truck, and them driving me home. Like that was my thing. Is getting too drunk. What's your thing? My thing was to become a problem. I became a problem every time. And my drink was Jack and Coke. And so one of my buddy Diggs, who passed away earlier this year, he's the one who gave me that name, Whiskey Black. And he was like, "You just drink your whiskey straight?" And I was like, "No, it's with Coke." And he was like, "Black whiskey black." And he
Yeah.
was like, "That's what we're gonna." Because before that, my name that he gave me was Malfoy from Harry Potter.
Yeah.
I like whiskey black better.
I
Yeah.
like whiskey black better too. I never say Malfoy.
Justin, didn't you have to explain to a superior one time why you named your dog Chapo?
Yeah. I said that it was because in Spanish it means shorty. And he was like, yeah, that makes sense because, it's a short statured dog.
Yeah. Certainly
I mean-
wouldn't name this dog after a notorious cartel leader.
No, that would be, that wouldn't jive. But honestly, I just thought it was a cool sounding name.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, okay, it kind of works on two levels because there's El Chapo, so like the Spanish spelling of Chapo, or you could go
Right.
Chapo, Choppa or PPO, Chapo, like because he's a badass dog who's gonna
Like-
chop you up or something.
Well, wouldn't Chapo also be like a mob term, like for a boss?
Oh, that's
Oh, Chapo.
Capo.
Capo.
Capo, yeah.
Yeah, dang, I was gonna say something.
Something just really changed with your audio, Justin.
Oh.
It's fine.
Test.
What microphone are you using? That's not a real microphone, is it?
No, it is.
It's a Mr. Microphone.
You're supposed to bop it? Are you supposed to bop that microphone to get it to
No.
turn on?
No, dude, this is a fancy microphone, and I don't know. I'm
Pardon
not sure
me.
if I'm going to keep it, because honestly, I think that the one that my brother has sounds pretty good, and he's got an arm and everything. And it was cheaper than this, so I don't know. The thing is it doesn't currently fit my boom, so I have to sit it on my fat like that, like with my little shelf.
The shelf.
works.
Yeah.
What's your Teapot? What do you think about? And I don't think this. I think conservatives have been told the boogeyman wants a wide open border, and the boogeyman wants to let everyone in.
Yeah.
All the terrorists, all the rapists, all the
Yeah.
the dog eaters. The boogeyman wants to let everyone in.
Yeah,
I know that's a cartoonish way of thinking about this.
sure.
But it makes me really nervous, man. There are documented terrorists that came across the southern border, and probably lots of them.
Yeah. That is a much more complicated issue than I think a
Yeah.
lot of people allow it to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I do find myself conflicted at times because the humanitarian in me understands that if you pack up your wife and your kids and you fucking walk to Texas from Guatemala,
Yeah.
that's a level of, to me it reminds me of, they told the stories about the people on 9/11 who jumped out of the buildings because it's like what's behind me is so much worse than what's in front of me, even if what's in front of me is death.
Yeah.
And so I feel very deeply for these people, and I have known so many Latino people who are just the kindest, most beautiful people, and I genuinely believe that the vast majority of the people coming across the border are coming here because they believe they have a shot at a better life in America. Now,
Yeah. Best country on earth.
there are absolutely bad actors coming across with them, and I don't know what to do about that, but I I definitely think that we should not have open borders, but we should be very
More compassionate.
more compassionate and as accommodating as we can be to the people who come
Yeah.
here, the people who make it here. I think we should do everything in our power to give them a chance to stay if they can prove that they are not here to do us harm.
Yeah.
And I don't know policy wise, I don't know how to do that. But it breaks my heart um, to see the rhetoric around that issue right now, and how it just demonizes just entire nationalities almost.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, and as a conservative, because at least from my view, and I think Justin would say the same thing, is there's honestly no racist or racism bone in my body. It has nothing to, I don't care about that,
Yeah,
but you fail to see the implicit racism whenever you say people from this country, and you're not
yep,
saying all the brown people. It just
right,
happens to be that everyone from this country is brown.
yeah,
We don't see that,
yeah,
but they have to see that because that's them.
yeah,
Oh, not me,
yeah,
not me, as whatever I am. Yeah, there's views to look like that. I've heard that the best cop described as Gandhi with a gun, like
mm,
like the best cop would have to be like a SEAL Team 6 Gandhi.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like you can handle anything, but you're also wise enough to know when to
yeah,
not to. I would, and that's like that's an impossibility. That's a goal, but you know that person would never exist.
yeah,
The version of a border that I see like that would be a rock solid, you know, locked up tight border, very secure, but compassionate, like how Gandhi would be as a cop,
mhm,
compassionate as far as welcoming and deserving
mhm,
and intelligently,
yeah,
you know, wisely letting everyone in. If we could let people who need in and people who really it's just anyone who's not gonna do us harm.
yeah,
I want to justify that with people who's gonna like add to us, but I
yeah.
don't think that's a real qualifier. I don't think that's a just qualifier. Like Elon Musk was saying, we need to let in all the best and intelligent people. I get that argument, but I don't think that should be a qualifier.
No, uh, because you know, and there are. I'm gonna kind of seem like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth here because I feel like in a lot of ways America is kind of a hellscape right now. Um, in terms of healthcare and unaffordable housing, and there's a lot of things that are
Oh man,
wrong,
we live in
right?
North Georgia.
Yeah, right. You get it.
It's
Um,
impossible.
and I work for a home builder, and my company right now, and I'm very aware of the fact that I personally am benefiting financially from the fact that we have a shortage of about 4 million homes
Hmm.
in the United States right now. So I am not blind to the fact that my wallet is fatter than it would have been if I worked in another industry because of this problem. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't
Right.
work to solve that problem. Um, but I think I get so frustrated with the rhetoric around immigration because it's so simplistic, and
Yes.
it's not. There are very few people who are even equipped to have a serious discussion about it, because when they say something like, well, they should just come here legally, most people don't realize that is virtually impossible. Like
Yeah.
there, I saw an infographic one time that was sort of a flow chart, and it basically laid out the different scenarios by which you could legally obtain citizenship in the United States. And there's a certain number of H-1B visas that are issued every year, and they cap those numbers at, like, I don't know, there's like 5,000 or 10,000 or something that they let in. And that sounds like a lot of people, but 10,000, let's just say it's 10,000 people when there's a couple million who are trying to get here. And why is one person entitled to an opportunity that another person isn't just because of where they were born geographically. Like in some sense, we won the genetic lottery because our families were immigrants who ended up in America, right?
Yeah.
So we started on third base.
Yeah.
And so to your point of, you know, just being, you know, able to, you know, be a software engineer who's going to make, you know, Elon Musk or Vivek Ramaswamy, you know, they're going to enrich their company, so they're okay with those guys coming here, but they're not interested in the guys who are going to go work on the roofing crew, to maybe build up some of these 4 million houses that were short. So
Yeah.
I just wish people, I wish people were more aware of what they were saying when they say something like, well, they should just come here legally. I would be happy to let them in if they came legally. That's not really a thing in all practical, for all practical purposes.
Right. Yeah, and it's also it's tricky how fast laws change. Like even with the gun stuff, um, like immigration laws can change like this. Like with my, I have a couple of different firearms, and generally speaking, last year or the year before, the director of the ATF changed the definition of what a short-barreled rifle is, and you can debate whether a bureaucrat should have the power to just decide
Right.
what is, which ended up making people a felon. So he changed, so from a pistol to a short-barreled rifle. A pistol, as far as an AR platform, the only difference is a pistol has a brace that's not a stock, where a rifle has a stock to put there. Well, he said that the short barrel rifles, and in practicality, they're the same thing. But he said a pistol is now the same as a short barrel rifle. So millions, potentially up to, I don't know, tens of millions of people have these pistols, these AR-15 pistols that were legally on, or that they did own legally on Monday. On Tuesday,
Yeah.
they were a felon.
Mm-hmm.
And that there was a big warning. There was like 3 months of warning, but
Yeah.
it did happen. On one day they were legal. The next day,
Yeah.
if you owned them and they weren't registered, you were a felon,
Yep.
or you were committing a felonious crime.
Yeah.
With immigration, man. So like one of my dear friends, my family, one of my family's dear friends, she's come to our kids' school on Grandparent Day when our grandparents were in Kansas. This old Indian lady across the street came to our school for Grandparents Day. She's near and dear to us. The immigration laws changed for her son when he was visiting here, to where he had to leave. Like it was something happened. It was like a seasonal change to where like, hey, all these visas are cut short. They're actually half life. And he was like, oh, I gotta go. And it just happened like that, where you don't know. You might think that you're doing everything right. Oh, I came across the border. I checked in.
Yeah.
I didn't know that I got to check in, even though this man told me in a language that I don't speak, that I got to check in 3 months.
Right. Yeah.
Or a year. Or that's another thing, man. That's a valid fear that's been pitched to us, is that these folks are coming across, and border, a version of this is happening, but I don't know if it's this version. But these folks are coming across, Border Patrol's picking them up and giving them a hearing date. But the hearing date is like 5-6 years in the future.
Years down the road. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And they're not going to make it to that date, or a lot of them aren't. And
Sure.
and they're not going to have any way of getting a hold of these people at then. I'm not demonizing all these people. I'm just saying practically,
Yeah.
they're not going to make it to their court date. And even if when they don't, the Border Patrol is going to have no way of tracking them down.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the big problem with that. And there's so many systemic things that feed into that, right? We don't have enough immigration judges. We don't have enough Border Patrol agents. We don't have enough anybody we don't have the infrastructure in place to keep track of these folks. And yeah, they come into the country, they don't speak the language, they essentially disappear into the ether of America. And at some point down the line, there's a warrant issued because they didn't show up for their court date that they may not have even known that they had. Right. So it's not a workable system. I am fully sensitive to that fact. I guess the thing I wish is that people who are making policy, or not even making policy, using the issue as a platform to stir people up for votes, rather than showing an ounce of fucking respect for the humanity of these people,
Right.
and doing anything to help them or us. It's just another one of those issues that you know,
I mean, they're
it
just
puts asses
people.
in the seats.
Yeah,
when it
people
comes
on
to voting.
the political people on both sides are just saying whatever they think their people want to hear.
Yeah, for sure.
They're just saying whatever they think was going to get the biggest cheer, is going to get them into the office. Their whole job is to get reelected. That's
Absolutely.
what a politician's job is
Yeah,
to get
fundraising
reelected.
and getting reelected. They start fundraising the day after they get elected for the next election.
Yeah, and they end up with some pretty sweet jobs afterwards too.
That's right. Yep. Absolutely.
Unless your name's Matt Gates and you it comes out that you were sexing and drugging some 17-year-olds.
Turns out there are some limits, I guess. I was beginning to think that there weren't, but maybe there are some lines that still can't be crossed.
Yeah, man. He wanted that Donald, that Teflon Don mojo to get stick to him, I think.
He did. Yeah, he wanted some of that. He wanted some of that magic.
But guess what, Matt? You ain't Don.
And you know what's I don't spend I don't spend any time on Twitter these days because for whatever reason.
Yeah. I don't, because of the pornography that's on there.
It's just rampant, right?
Yeah.
But the narrative that Matt Gaetz was, or the narrative that I would see from the various Republican conservative influencers was something along the lines of, "Oh, you guys better leave Matt Gaetz alone because you don't want it to come to light that, you know, if he spills the beans about all your guys." I want to know.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to know if Democratic senators and representatives were doing the same shit that Matt Gaetz did, throw their asses in jail.
Yeah.
I do not respect teams in that sense, right? Like, and the same thing, you know, I firmly believe that if anybody could prove that Barack Obama or Joe Biden or anybody had committed the crimes that they said they committed.
Okay, T-Pac.
No, I'm serious. I believe that every president probably breaks the law.
Sure.
So that's kind of the baseline that you're starting with. But the idea that I, as a Democrat, would say, well, no, you can't. No, not my guy.
Right.
No, if he did it and you can prove it, prosecute him to the fullest extent of the law.
Yeah.
I don't care, Republican or Democrat. If you do something that is worthy of prosecution and you can prove your case in a court of law, that's the system we live in.
Yeah. What's good for the goose is good for the gander, homeboy.
Absolutely. And so this idea that somehow Democrats only want Republicans to be prosecuted, I don't think that's true. At least it's not true with me.
Yeah, I might have said those words, but when I say Democrats, I don't mean you. I would mean the faces of Democrats, like the leadership.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's the thing. Just like you're saying, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. It's so frustrating, especially if you're not educated or if you don't take the time to learn about the history of some of this stuff.
Yeah.
It seems like, oh man, they weaponized the justice system just for Donald Trump. And this is the first time in American history that we've ever weaponized the justice system for just Donald Trump. This is an outrage. And I do think they weaponized the justice system for Donald Trump, but that's also not the first time that's ever happened.
Absolutely
and
not.
It's not Republicans do it. They were gearing up. In some ways, they're still talking like they're gearing up to do the exact same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So don't give me 8 years, conservatives, of telling me how the justice system is, or how Democrats are so bad and how they need to be stopped because they're doing this thing that you are platforming on doing.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, it comes down to the man you look at, or the person you see in the mirror. Like,
Yeah.
do I want to say these things, or do I want to actually be about these things
Yeah.
to whatever, whatever that means, to whatever
Sure.
degree?
Yeah.
That's the hard part to get.
Yep. Indeed.
Well, I want to talk about something other than politics.
All right.
What, TPAC, what else, what do you got going on in your life? Oh, snap.
Uh, I just pulled the magician card earlier today. Also, on top of everything else, I'm also now an amateur tarot card reader.
Oh, are you? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, he just revealed a deck. That's what distracted me.
Oh, okay.
So are you into any witchcraft or occult?
Do you dabble in
Do
the
I dabble
occult?
in the dark arts, Draco Malfoy? Um, uh, I continue to be, and I have been for a long time, fascinated by the occult in general. Not
It's
to the
cool.
point, not that I'm,
It's cool.
It is.
I don't dabble in it myself, but if on no other level other than just the lore around it, I'm always fascinated about uh, how that's permeated the arts over the years, and I mentioned I'm a huge fan of horror movies, and I read a lot of horror novels in general, and those tend to be some of my favorites. So um, I'm deeply interested in
The
stories
Catholic
around
Church.
that and like ghost hunting and stuff like that. I I I don't know what I believe about all that stuff other than to say I think it's way too simplistic to just write it off as being nothing, but I don't have good explanations for what I think it is.
Do you? Well, I want to stay on magic, but what's your? Do you feel a need to have a spiritual life now, or what's your spiritual life now, post Christian?
Um, yeah,
I'm also
it,
post some things.
yeah. Um, I would say if I had to label, and it's been a transformation, right? So for me, and what I've observed in a lot of other, hey,
It fell out again. The magician.
Justin, I showed you my tarot card tattoo, didn't I?
No,
Uh,
What
no.
tarot card did you get tattooed? This is
the
gonna help me.
the lovers. Um,
I pulled that card for Justin the other day.
yeah, and I got the that lyric from the Death Cab song, "I'll follow you into the dark." So it's a tarot card of the lovers, and then it just says, "I'll follow you into the dark" underneath it.
Nice.
Um,
Where on your body is it?
back here on my shoulder, on the back of my shoulder, back of my arm, rather.
Yeah.
Um, but no, in terms of a spiritual life, I'm still open to spirituality. I would say I'm casting a much wider net than I used to, in terms of like where
What is
I
what does that look like for like you? What we would used to say your relationship with God? Like, do you have a practice, or what do you got now as far as like actual hands on?
um I would say it's probably become more um more along the lines of trying to stay open to the mystery.
Yeah.
Um, I look for ways to be mindful. I've things like I don't really meditate as such, but I'm open to the practice, and I wish I knew how to do it, but I haven't ever been able to get the inner monologue to stop long enough and I know that like all the people that I've listened to who talk about meditation will say that's okay. When the thoughts come in, acknowledge them, let them pass, and then return your focus or whatever. So I journal a little bit. I tried to start a practice of a daily gratitude journal, which I don't, I guess it's spiritual in a sense that I did that to try to keep my focus on the things that are good in my life, to try to drown out the things that weren't. And I think on balance, I found that was useful for me to be reminded of the blessings or good fortune or whatever you want to call it. But in terms of relationship with God, or I think I started to say, and then I went down a rabbit hole. If I had to label myself, I after I deconstructed, I guess I became what I would call maybe a hopeful agnostic, which
Yeah.
is that I certainly don't have data or anything that would allow me to say that God or some higher form of power does not exist, but I also don't have evidence to believe anymore that it was anything like what I was raised to believe. So, and this is something Justin and I have talked about a lot. I think I'm much more open to the concept of most religions sort of being different variations on the same theme, that if we're heading anywhere, we're probably all heading the same place. And I don't exactly know what that looks like, but I guess I'm just much more open to kind of eating the meat and spitting out the bones in terms of what I do and don't believe across various religions, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. I I was smacked with some of these things before I officially started my deconstruction, but looking back, it was probably part of my deconstruction. But I found that Christianity is really good, or it's really good at some things, but it's effective at a lot of things like a multi-tool. It has some psalms or proverbs for like wisdom. It has some compassion. It has some forgiveness. It has some a lot of little things. It's really good on judgment, and it's really good on telling you what sin.
They got that on lockdown.
They got that down lockdown. But I found that there were things outside of Christianity, and ended up being some things that were like even different religions, but things like stoicism or meditation that did a better job at what I was trying to get from Christianity.
Yeah.
Like I was trying to get peace of mind.
Yep.
I was trying to get rid of some of this anxiety. And man, as much as I fasting and praying as all my little heart could do, it wasn't as good as an Anthony Robbins CD set and
Yeah.
a Deepak Chopra meditation CD.
Yeah. I had this thought a while back, and I don't know if it's original to me or if I just sort of absorbed it through, some Instagram philosopher. But I always remember that verse in the Bible that talks about having the peace that passes all understanding. And it struck me that I never had that when I was a Christian.
Yeah.
I didn't have anything that even approached that until I walked away from at least the flavor of Christianity that I was raised with, right? And I have found infinitely more peace by just sort of disconnecting from organized religion, and just sort of observing the world around me and learning as much as I can about people and being open to other sources of wisdom. And I and I also am acutely aware of the fact that anybody that I went to church with as a kid would hear me say that and think that's exactly what we told you was going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Turns out they were right about a lot of things.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're on their phones right now, lighting
Well,
up the prayer chain.
Yeah.
So whenever I had that realization of like there's some things that work better at what I was trying to get out of Christianity,
Yeah.
like, and this really happened in the last couple years. I went on this Easter egg hunt of like other forms of spirituality that
Yeah.
could, just like how co- Anthony Robbins is just like a commercialized version of cognitive behavioral therapy,
Yeah.
which is Stoicism. It's it's treatment built off of the ideas of Stoicism.
Yeah.
So Anthony Robbins got me to Stoicism. Deepak Chopra got me to kind of like to Hinduism, but more of he got me to Ram Dass, which is a whole separate
I
thing.
love Ram Dass, man.
I love Ram
Ram
Dass.
Dass. Be here
But
now.
one of the things that I got into is like I don't want to disrespect it because it's not completely childish, but I got into like the idea of magic. And what magic really is, even the traditions tell you this, is that it's a way of harnessing your intention to change the world around you.
Yeah.
That's magic, using this to change this.
Yeah.
And there's rituals that they've developed over the years, generations and millennia to make that come into to to make that come into the world.
Yeah.
But I also like to give it real or at least pay its respect of like I want to play the game of belief. I say that, but even that feels disrespectful. I want to give it the belief. So like one of the things that I do is I got this tarot deck for Christmas. So I
Yeah.
say do. I've done for a couple of days. But I like this idea of the whole magic thing is like I want to put my intentions into this and be like, okay, I like talking to my dead mom. So like even lighting a candle and talking to her sometimes like, all right, mom, tell me the truth that's going to come through these cards. Protect me from any disinformation. And that from like these other spiritual practices, I've learned about the idea of your ancestor, not as like naming them particularly, but more of like an ancestor tradition. Really, it's what it is a place to put your mind to draw on that energy. You know what I mean? Eventually, they're all saying your higher self, your higher conscience, whatever that God self thing is. And I'm getting real woo woo, and it's cool. But to come speak through there. And so like I started talking to Santa Muerta, the Mexican deity of death.
Okay.
I like to talk to Santa Muerta. I like to talk to my dead ancestors, and I wanted to get a tarot deck forever, and my wife knew that, and she's awesome, so she got me two for Christmas.
Okay. So let me ask you this. So uh, when you
And I still consider myself a Christian.
okay. So when you say you talk to, how do you feel like that's a two-way communication in any form? Do you feel like there a response in some way? You feel that?
Well, let me tell you something, Brother Crafton. The Lord speaks in mysterious ways.
Absolutely.
And one of the ways that the Lord can speak is through a tarot deck.
Okay.
So if so like with my mom,
Yeah.
when this first started happening, the first thing I started to do, like reaching out on this limb, was to get a picture of my mom and to give her a special place on my bookshelf, which I called like my altar, which I would. It started off with me just wanting to feel a connection with my mom. You know, I'm a mama's boy. My mom passed away. There's a lot of abandonment issues. She sent me to a group home when I was a teenager. So I'm real connected with my mom, and it's a complicated relationship.
Yeah.
I wanted to just talk to her. Like I wasn't even, I wanted her to hug me and to hold me
Sure.
and for her to tell me that everything's going to be okay.
Yeah.
But I wasn't expecting that to happen, and it hasn't happened, at least not like that.
Right.
But I gave myself enough faith or permission to have enough faith to allow myself to maybe feel a good feeling when I am talking to her.
Yeah.
And maybe that good feeling can come from her.
Sure.
Because after everything's deconstructed, I still believe there's an afterlife.
Yeah.
Whatever that means, it doesn't mean what I think. It doesn't mean to me now what it meant to me back then.
Yeah.
Like I don't think there's pearly gates and
Yeah.
there's Peter at the
Streets of
front.
gold and all that stuff.
Right. But I do think she's still somewhere. I don't think she went anywhere. I think she changed forms.
Yeah.
And so I give myself the possibility for her to talk back. And that changed to, I gave her the same grace that I gave the other thing that I used to talk to that didn't talk back to me, how I would allow that thing to talk to me. I gave her the same way. Like maybe you can talk to me in the whisper of a wind. Maybe you can talk to me when the street light turns red,
Yeah.
or
Still
when
a small voice.
in a still small voice, or maybe when Cash comes up and punches me in the nuts and calls me nerds. You know, maybe that's her being playful, and I like to think that it is.
Well, I don't think it's a big leap to. I don't think it's a big leap to even say that our ancestors can speak to us through our children, because in a way our children are part of them, right? They're an extension of
Right.
the people who
My
came
mom is
before
living
us.
in me.
Absolutely. I mean, you literally share genetic material, right?
Her
So,
DNA didn't go anywhere.
right. And this is getting way over my head.
That's cool.
Just in terms of like, what happens to energy, right? If
Right.
people contain energy, and I could be misstating this, but I believe one of the laws of thermodynamics is that energy can't be destroyed.
Right.
So, if you believe that people contain energy in some form, that energy must take another form when the human vessel dies, right? I don't know what that means or what the implications of that are, but I don't think it's that far fetched to believe that energy sometimes sticks around.
Well, here's what I experience. And I think I sent Justin a video. I think I've heard my mom talk to me in the park in my garage one time when my lights was flashing.
Yeah,
Maybe that happened, maybe it didn't. I wanted it to happen.
sure.
But what she's when I allow her when I allowed to hear her talking to me, when I allowed to hear spirit talking, when I allow myself to hear God talking to me, the experience of whether she popped in my room in a cloud of dust and said everything's going to be all right, or whether I got myself through ritual or through any other mean to a state of mind where I experienced her in the room with me, and I experienced her telling me it's all going to be all right. It's the same. I had the same experience.
Sure.
And it's the same if that was induced from drugs. Like,
Yeah.
right? I mean, that's
Yeah.
the conversation we had the other day.
Yeah, but I'm
That,
not 100% on that. I think
mean,
that's
well, one person gets it from religion and one person gets it from something else.
right. I think that's true. But I think, like religion, if you put all of your eggs in one basket, you're missing the whole picture. And so, like with a drug, for instance, I'm a THC user. I also suffer from severe PTSD. I have torn labrum and I have compressed disc. THC helps me eat. It helps me sleep. It helps me function in society. It replaces the trash bag full of SSRIs and pills that the VA wanted me to have. And I'm functioning. I'm a functioning member of society. I pay my taxes and I go to church. But if I put all my eggs in the THC basket, and I don't think our ancestors did this either. Like I believe, I know that research tells us that some sort of intoxicant has been part of human history for pretty much all of recorded human history. We've dabbled in the intoxicants, but usually in a religious setting or for a religious purpose. Like it was the shaman drinking the ayahuasca to tell you where the animals were that you could go hunt, or telling you when the rainstorm was coming. I do think that you can have a spiritual experience with just drugs, but it's not the same thing if you would have incorporated that with like a real chant or a real mantra. Like if I set intention, if I set an intention to my higher self or to a deity or to my mom and say, Mom, I want to hit this pipe or this vape pen, and I'm going to do some Wim Hof breathing exercises, and I'm not expecting anything. I'm just going to spend some time with you.
Mm-hmm.
Then whatever ecstasy rolls on me with the breathing exercises and this ritual the ritual is real important, I think. That brings me to this real religious experience versus I could just eat a really strong gummy and trip my balls for for a little bit, and that's cool and fun, but I don't think it's the same.
Well, but my point is that so somebody would say, well, yeah, through that religious experience you can have, or through that breathing, whatever, you can feel like everything's good, but it's not real. Well, it's the same as if it were real. But
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying though. It's the same if it's however that part of the brain is hit with that chemical. If it's reproduced, then that is real. However, it's reproduced, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like
I mean, I don't think there's a neurological difference between whether you get your high from a Delta 9 vape pen or uh, a particular chorus of a Hillsong
Right.
praise and worship record. It's the same part of your brain that's activated. It's a different way to get there.
But if you combine those two, like the first
Man,
four
that's what,
centuries
Heck
of the
yeah.
church were doing,
that's what modern evangelicals really missed out because man, those praise choruses hit now. Imagine if you had a few bong rips before service and then heard
hey,
that
some of us don't have to
heard
do
that
too much imagining. It is. I'm about to say not all evangelicals are missing out. Some of us are right enjoying the fruits.
That's awesome.
But yeah, so like I don't know, part of what my spiritual practice or whatever looks like now is I like to play around. Like I say, it's more than play, but I want it to be playful. Like
Mhm.
I want it to be like the relationship I had with my mom.
Mhm.
Like I was a smartass with my mom sometimes, and not always in a mean way. Sometimes I just wanted to be playful. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And childish. That's how I want my. That is how my relationship with kind of how my relationship with God is now. It's
Mhm.
playful and like a
Mhm.
parent and loving. Everything that I wanted my relationship with God to be when I was an evangelical, I'm now choosing to make my relationship with God.
Mhm.
But I don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater, and I can just choose, which is really what we were doing the whole time. Because if you read the Bible, the Baptist Church of Southern Sedgwick County was not following the letter. I promise.
Yeah. There's an awful lot of things that got chalked up to, well, God works in mysterious ways.
Different times. That was different times right back then. It means something else.
Yeah, for sure.
Have you learned anything like post Christianity? Have you uh like me and Justin learned about from some actual academic theologians about like the language that the Old Testament was written in, even before Greek, like the Ugaritic, even before Hebrew, and what some of these words actually meant, especially in the time that it was written to the audience that it was written to,
Yeah.
in the particular set of circumstances that they had
Yeah.
in the world they were living in. Like an example that I think I talk about on every episode is Elohim.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I heard you guys mention this guy on a previous episode. But Dan McClellan,
Yeah, dude.
the data over dogma guy on TikTok, I have learned so much from him. And of course, I mean, I'd be hard pressed to give you an example right now. But every time I hear that guy talk, I'm like, my jaw just drops because I feel like I learned something that I had no idea of. And particularly the Elohim and
Yeah.
who El was, and
Yeah.
did El have a consort? Was God married? Well, lot of historical evidence to suggest that yeah, he probably was, at least in that early Near East mythology, right?
Right.
Um,
Or is the is El actually the person that who is El and Yahweh the same thing?
right,
Or,
right,
especially in the time that this is written
right, and
to the
that
people who it have been written to.
yeah, and that the that El would have been one god in the pantheon of gods that that the early Hebrews would have worshipped, and so obviously the academics are better positioned to
Not here, they're not.
well,
In fact, they're not really welcome if you want
Yeah.
to know the truth.
I guess I would say I don't feel equipped to really do it justice, but I fully believe that the work that those guys are doing, Dan McClellan and Bart Ehrman and some of those, the work that they're doing has done so much to show me that the version of the Bible that I was raised on it was manufactured,
Yeah.
and
Oh yeah.
it was used primarily for control, I think.
Well, and the theology that you were force fed, even based off of that manipulated,
Yeah,
changed, adulterated word of God, even those didn't match up. There
yeah,
still had to be a lot of mental gymnastics.
for sure. Yeah,
Um, yeah, I love Dead Over Dogma. I love those guys, but even with them, and I know it's like this with everyone. Maybe it's just impossible to escape. But they put their they put their own ideology on the message that they're giving out
yeah. I don't
in
know if it.
subtle ways.
Yeah, I don't know if it's possible not to though.
Yeah,
You know
yeah,
what I mean? Like every interaction that we have, I think is colored through the lens that we're looking through, and we all have different lenses because they were all crafted over different lifetimes of different experiences.
yeah.
Um, so
That's right.
I do think, academics should try to be as objective as they can. I think McClellan does a pretty good job of,
Yeah, I
because
think so too.
I've, he'll admit when he's wrong. I've heard him retract things that he said before, which I think is, to me, that's about as good as you can hope for, right? Is for
Yeah,
somebody who can say, "Hey guys, I was wrong about this, and here's why."
maybe that's the only sign that you're actually learning still.
I think so, because I don't know that I ever once heard somebody say they were wrong in the church I grew up with.
Yeah, it would actually be a sin to point out if
Right?
your leaders were wrong.
How dare you?
Yeah.
How
It
dare
looks
you?
like someone's got a little case of the spirit of rebellion.
Which is as witchcraft.
So we're not allowed to let you live anymore.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sorry. It's not my rules. It's right here in the book, Leviticus. Have you, speaking of tarot cards, I see this, I keep seeing this meme pop up, and it cracks me up every single time, where the guy says, he says, the old lady shows him a tarot card of a guy who looks just like me in a hot air balloon heading for electrical lines. And he says, "Is that good?"
Yeah. I thought I said that to Justin not too long
You
ago.
may have. I've probably sent it to 50 different people 100 different times because it cracks me up every time.
But do you feel at liberty to tell the story you're telling me earlier?
Oh, well, it depends. Start to tell it.
Well, about a reading you did recently.
Oh, yeah, sure. She's not going to listen to this. So, like I said, I've only been doing this for days, but I've
But
I've
you're pretty
been in
good.
this. I've been I'm pretty fucking good already. There is such thing as natural talent. But also I've been in this world. I've been talking to Santissima Muerte for a while. I've been talking to my mom for my whole life.
Yeah.
Like I know her pretty well. I've been in the woo-woo world. So I've got I'm not brand new, but I've only been doing this for a few days.
Bona fides are established.
Bona fides, I'm legit. All right.
Yeah.
Um, I've done readings for 3 people, which were the Justin, my wife, and my mother-in-law,
Okay.
who's flying home to Kansas tomorrow. um, yeah, I did a reading for my mother-in-law. And every card was a 1,000% accurate. It was the right card.
Yeah.
And it was all doom and gloom
No.
and just the worst. It was like, oh, look, you've had heartache and heartbreak and betrayal. So I do 3 rows, past, present, and future.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, look, heartache, betrayal in the past. Yeah, that happened. And resentment and feeling of abandonment. Okay, yeah, sure. That's all there. Present, some good cards.
Don't give away any family secrets. or
Yeah,
nothing.
that's good cards, but it's for real. Good cards for her. She's going
Yeah.
through good present time. Future, heartache, depression,
Not
tragedy.
looking good. Not
Yeah.
looking good, Mom.
To
Thought they
the
were believing
point,
power lines.
to the point where like hot dog and meat grinder. Like, what does this represent?
Do you feel compelled to be honest about it? Like,
I tried to paint it in the most positive light that I could. I'm like, oh, look, this hanged man could be the end of a bad relationship. So that's good, right?
yeah.
But it really is. It's based off of intuition. Like the cards do have black and white meanings, many different black and white meanings,
Mhm.
but that's almost like secondary or even tertiary to what does this card mean to you specifically? Like how is this card striking you specifically as the reader, and how is it striking the person being read for specifically? Like
Mhm.
what does this card oh wow, I keep drawing, that was the first top of the deck. What does the magician mean to you specifically?
Yeah.
And so, like the magician, there's lots of cool stuff on here. He's holding this candle, like he's illuminating,
Uh-huh.
but it's double ended. It's on the top and the bottom. So, like as above, so below.
Mhm.
He's got the infinity sign on top of his head, which could
Yeah.
mean he's been here forever. He's going to be here forever. All these things are all the suits of the tarot: the cup, the pentacle, the sword, and the wand.
Mhm.
Well, the cup and the pentacle are both blessings, but he also has the sword and the wand on the table. So it's like, yeah, you can have one, but you're also going to have the other.
Mhm.
And he kind of has a smirk on his face. There's just a lot of stuff that could mean to just you, but there's also black and white. Like this is a yes card. If you're asking a yes or no question, that's a yes card. It's also a spirit of spring. So it means like abundance. So like there's that, almost like the astrological, like what's your sign type stuff.
So that's really the closest experience that I've had with anything in that realm. Last year, some good friends of ours out here, um, she she'd started reading people's birth charts and providing readings for them, and she gifted me one for my birthday. So I gave her my birth date and time and all that, and she sent me this 30-page report that, as I read through it, I was shocked at how accurate it was
Really?
in terms of how it described me. It really felt like I was reading through, in the corporate world, that you've got adherents of different personality profiles, like the DISC or the Enneagram or whatever. And those are all based on how you answer a series of questions. And I don't know the alchemy behind the scenes in terms of how they determine it, but I've generally found those to be, in a lot of ways, very accurate. I see a lot of myself in those reports, and I was really surprised to recognize as much of myself in that reading that she did for me as I did, because I was skeptical going into it, but I had decided, there's no reason I shouldn't do this. I'm open to just just for the experience, right? And so I kind of took it with a grain of salt, and I sent her my information, and she sent me back the report, and it was very kind of her to spend the time to do it. And I was very surprised at how much of myself I saw in it.
You know, it's pretty wild how much the church has demonized this, like literally demonized all this world, all this stuff, the esoteric and like astrology, intuition, other parts of the supernatural that aren't in the New Testament. The church has literally demonized, like burning people at the stake for these things. It's kind of wild. Like, you have to wonder what are you so afraid of? Like,
Yeah.
if it's nothing, what are you so afraid of? And to say that it's full of demons, it's going to make you demon possessed is an argument. And I know that's the fear that scared me out of fooling with this stuff.
Yeah.
But like with Dan McClellan and other academics, when they explain things out of the Bible, and even if you just read it, when you take your theology out of it, there's magic all through the Old Testament.
Sure.
Casting lots is the oldest form of the spirits talking to you. Like you're letting chance speak. Let chance, the God, tell me what's supposed to happen based on how this dice lands. They casted lots to see who's going to be the new disciple. They casted the Romans casted lots for Jesus's tunic. They were committing magic, especially back then. How they knew that, because they knew that as magic. The story of creating Adam out of clay, like making a clay image and breathing life into them, that is an ancient Ugaritic, pre-Judean, but very much Judean tradition of how they made a god, how they made the god in the temple, how they made the thing that they worship. They made it out of clay and they breathed life into it. Like, homie, you got magic all through here. The witch of Endor, that talked to Elijah. Even, and we just use different words, but the prophets were wizards. They're raising dead people with their staff. They're walking on water. They're doing all kinds
Killing
of crazy
people with
stuff.
fire from heaven.
Yeah, calling it down, raising up old bones just to prove a message.
Right.
Stopping the sun in the sky. Those are fucking wizards.
Yeah.
But yeah,
100%.
that's a human thing. And it's even in Christianity. Well, it's in the ancient versions of these religions. Ancestor worship, talking to your dead ancestors, talking to other gods, talking to regional gods. Like Yahweh was a regional god. Baal was in the same family as he was an Elohim, and he was a regional god. He just happened to be a Palestinian regional god or Philistine regional god, so we had to cleanse him. There's magic all through there. And post my deconstruction, I like, now I'm venturing out to see where else that magic can come from.
Yeah. Well, it's even interesting when you think about the idea of the Old Testament God, or what we think of as God. And I think this is something Dan McClellan has talked about, is that the idea was that he should be preeminent, because in the Ten Commandments, when it says you shall have no other gods before me, it doesn't say there are no other gods beside me. It said you should have no other gods before me. So it would seem that the intention there is, yes, I'm acknowledging that these other gods exist in various regions, what have you. I need to be the one that you worship.
Especially me, God of the region of Israel, you, children of Israel. Yeah, there's other gods around here, but none of them need to be important to me.
Right.
Or as important
as me. Right.
And even they had to tighten the belt at different points to be like, you know what, you guys are worshiping God's wife more than God, or you're worshiping Yahweh's wife more than Yahweh. We're gonna get rid of her and even erase her from the books.
Yep.
And if you even mention her, we're gonna kill you. And same thing with Baal. Hey guys, Baal doesn't exist here anymore. We're gonna, if you
New
mention
sheriff
it,
in town.
Yeah, there's a new sheriff here.
His name is Yahweh.
Who's not Elohim, but
Jehovah,
we're going to change.
and we're his witnesses.
Yeah.
I can cut this out. I'm running out of steam. What do you got,
Yeah,
Justin?
we've been going for
Dude.
about 2.5 hours. So
Oh, really?
yeah. Well,
I'm just over
Um,
here talking to the spirits.
Yeah, I mean,
Knight of
I'm good to wrap
Swords.
up whenever. It's so late for you guys.
Not really.
yeah. Well, I would have been up anyway, but I'm glad I don't have to go to work tomorrow.
Yeah.
All right.
Um,
T-Pack, reach your hand here, and I want you to imagine your highest self, your whatever God, the biggest thing going through you. And oh, for real, raise your hand. Do it.
you don't have to do this if it makes you
Yeah,
uncomfortable,
no, you
Travis.
have to.
I
Yeah,
there's a demon in my room now. I can feel it.
yeah.
Keep your
Okay.
hand up.
I'm gonna do. You can think of a question. Don't tell me the question. You can think of a question you want answered, or I'm just going to give you a past, present, and future reading. And either way, it's going to come out as a past, present, and future reading.
Yeah. Question.
Go ahead.
No, I'm trying to. Let's just keep it. Let's keep it general. The second
Okay.
option. Yeah.
Okay, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do a past, present, and future reading. How this? Yeah, I'm no more qualifiers. I'm just going to do it. First card, the Eight of Pentacles. Pentacles is a blessing,
Okay.
and it's the craftsman. So it means you're what? So the one of the traditional meanings of this is a blessing for craftsmen. So you work hard at your job and you get rewarded for it. This is the past row. You've
Mhm.
done lots of hard work. So in your past, you've done hard work and you've reaped a reward for it. First pass card.
Yep.
Second pass card. The upside down death. And I guess
You
what that
haven't
means,
died.
yeah, you haven't died or you've experienced death and have overcome it. You've had death present in your life before and have gotten
Mhm.
past it. Maybe
Mhm.
you were hung up on it before and you've gotten past it.
Okay.
Upside down death. The Lovers.
My
It's your
favorite
card.
one. Yep.
That means whatever it means to you. But the traditional meaning is it's Adam and Eve, and there's a deity watching over. You're in the Garden of Eden. You're naked, and this is before sin. This is
Okay.
an age of innocence.
Yep.
It's good times
Okay.
ordained by the heavens. 3 cards. That's your past.
Okay.
So you worked hard and got rewards. There was death in your past. You've gotten past it, and maybe you found a soulmate in your past.
Been married
The
for
ten-
almost 30 years.
There you go. Sounds pretty accurate. The 10 of Wands. Normally, wands can be not a curse, but they're not good. Like the
Okay.
Pentacle and the Cup is the good. The wands can be like something bad, but what that really means is it's something heavy or
Okay.
deep. Something could be ominous. Just something, yeah. And the 10 of any suit is a blessing.
Okay.
The 10 of any suit is a blessing, and the 5 of any suit is a curse or
Okay.
can be a negative. It's a no card. This is you carrying a heavy burden, but it's a blessing. So you're doing a good job at it. You're
Okay.
carrying a heavy burden,
Yep.
and it's 10 of them, something deep.
Okay.
Second card in present, justice. What justice really means, especially around the time that these came out, justice is cool because it has the scales in it for Libra.
Yeah.
But what justice really meant was closer to what we would call righteousness
Yeah.
versus like your just rewards,
Yeah.
like punishment and blessings for good and bad deeds. That's not exactly what the real version of justice meant. And I'm talking about like the Greek word of justice that Socrates would have used
Yeah.
is closer to what we would consider righteousness. So things being right, the scales being balanced in your present.
Okay.
Yeah, there's justice in your present. Third card in present, Wheels of Fortune. I think what that's so that has like the pharaohs, the mystical signs up top, right? The
Okay.
angels, that sphinx thing.
Mhm.
There's more on the bottom. They have some Kabbalic symbols in there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The Wheels of Fortune. Now is the time where you're at a fork in the road, fortune wise. Like your wheel is spinning. This is the time where things are going to go a direction. Does that make sense? What I'm saying?
I think
So
so. Yeah.
So what this is saying is that this is the time where your path will be made,
Mm-hmm.
or a path will be made.
Gotcha.
You're going to be going down a road.
Yep.
So maybe a decision or a big choice or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Future. Oh,
It's the hot air balloon, isn't it?
it's
A barrel
I'm-
of poison.
I'm counting my Roman numerals. It's the 7 of Pentacles.
Okay.
So another blessing card. That's this guy sowing, working for future blessings. So you got some work to do in the future.
Sure.
You have work coming up in the future for future blessings. Ace of Swords, holding a crown. Swords can be a curse or something heavy. Conflict. You're the ace of conflict, or the ace of conflict is in your future, which means you should be overcoming conflict. That's what it means to me.
Mm-hmm.
Last card in the future. Sorry, I'm counting my Roman numerals. 6 of Pentacles. Oh, you got 2 blessings in your future. And that's the guy who's holding the justice scales. He's feeding a hungry lady, and it looks like there's an orphan there with him.
Okay.
So you're going to be a blessing for someone else in the future. And there's an element of justice in it. And maybe even taking care of those that need care, those that need it.
Very cool.
So we got 4 now. 4 people on the list.
I love it.
How many do you have to do before you get your license?
I don't know, but I need to know because I need to get there pretty quick.
And you have to do like a certain number of hours as an apprentice and all that.
Yeah, like
There's
PDU
there's
credit,
some
continuing
gypsies here.
education.
Yeah, there's some gypsies here I can join up with. They read they gave me a tarot reading at a farmer's market the other day, a couple weeks ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
Have you ever done a palm reading? Or like
Me?
like a crystal ball? Yeah.
No, but they had crystal ball readings there too, and I didn't do it.
Yeah.
It's another $25.
Do you think that like even as you're doing that with T-Bone, like
Did those cards feel? I mean, there's something you can see of yourself
Sure.
in every card.
Sure.
That's what I'm saying. Go ahead.
Well, no, I think that, and I think it's the same way with the personality profiles I was talking about earlier. I think that probably any combination, you're going to see some things that are going to feel true and some things that are going to feel less true. I think there, the things that you said, there were things that came to mind immediately. Yeah, that was interesting. That was an interesting experience.
Yeah, and just like we were talking about before, it can be nothing. It can be, just whatever you see in it. But if you give yourself just the permission to have the opportunity for it to be, maybe that was something higher. Maybe not 100% of it was. Maybe, maybe it's whatever. But maybe there's something to that. Maybe I'll be thinking about it. Maybe I'll be looking for future ways to help people.
Yeah.
Maybe now I'll be looking for someone less fortunate. Maybe I'll be on the lookout for some financial, whatever. If I draw a card that says, that's another thing that the real readers say, is that this is almost like a warning or things that could be for the future. Like this is what path you're on.
That was one thing I was gonna ask you. And I love just about any variation of Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. Those are some of my favorite movies. And we watched The Muppets Christmas Carol the other day, which is my favorite one because Michael Caine plays Ebenezer Scrooge 100% straight, as if he was a Shakespearean actor. But there's a scene in that where when the Ghost of Christmas Future is showing him his tombstone, and he says, "Spirit, are these things?" He says something to the effect of, "Can these things be changed? Are they things that might be, or are these things that will be?" That was one of my general questions. Was
Yeah.
when you give a reading to somebody and they draw cards that are less than ideal,
Yeah.
is that a does that portend something that can be changed based on your actions?
I think so. Well, definitely. That's what like the gypsies told me. Or
Yeah.
I keep calling them gypsies. I'm not using it as
The
a slur.
Romani?
Yeah, the Romani ladies told me.
Yeah.
But I would the feel of it though is that you need to make actions to change it. Like
Yeah.
you can't be
Yeah.
passive and avoid what fate is telling you could happen.
Yeah. Makes sense.
It would have to be an alarm clock, like a ghost kidnapping you in the middle
Yeah.
of the night and showing you. Or yeah. Yeah, you can change it, but it's a big warning. Like you need if you do want to change it, it needs to be you need to take steps to change.
Take action to do it. Yeah. Interesting.
One spiritual experience that I can see you're messing with that you haven't brought up is those Zen Sixers. Uh, are those sixes?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Of course they are.
Yeah.
Stop asking silly questions.
I told you about the imported ones I bought the other day that were 12 milligram. I told you about that, right, Justin?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah. That took me on a journey.
The funny thing though is, dude, I'm just so I've got so much nicotine flowing through my blood at any given time, and it's not a brag. It's nothing good. I'm a freaking fiend.
Weird flex, dude.
Yeah,
Yeah.
man. I started.
You guys
chewing,
wouldn't even know how nicked out I am right now. Bro, he's nicked. Oh my God. You see
Yeah,
Justin?
I'm that dude outside the 7-Eleven that's like, but I know that I'm doing it. And I know that I know that like you see me, I'm about to come ask for, you got any cigarettes?
Got any of them sins?
Anyway.
That's funny, like because in 20 years when nobody smokes anymore, but there's gonna be people asking to bum a Zen.
Or a vape.
Yeah, nicotine's not going anywhere. It might change forms.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Clayton, you got anything else you want to hit on?
No, T-Pack, you have an open invitation. For the podcast, we can say adieu. Bye.
Yeah.
Adios.